Good to go? Okay. Okay, why don't we get started here? Good evening. We're here for the meeting of the Danvers Planning Board. It is Tuesday, May 13th, 2015 at 7 p.m. We're here in the Toomey Room at Danvers Town Hall. I'm Louis George. I'm the chair. I'm here joined by Jean Hartnett, clerk, members Jim Sears, Tim Spittle, and Michael DeCoulis. And also joined by Josh Morris from the principal planner with the town of Danvers. So let's take a look at our agenda here. So first agenda item is planning board reorganization, elect a chair and a clerk. I just wanted to just give a quick background here. Historically, the chair and the clerk have served for 2 years and then rotate to the next member based on seniority. So Jim had served as chair for 2 years, and I served as clerk for 2 years before I was elected to chair last year. I think it's a good approach. I think it allows the chair and the clerk to serve a sufficient period of time in their roles, but also allows for newer members to move up if they desire. But under our planning board procedural rules, however, we do need to have an annual election of a chair and a clerk the first meeting following the town election, which was, this is the first meeting after the town election. I'm willing and I'm interested in serving another year as chair before passing the baton. I believe Jean's willing to serve another year as clerk. At the end of the day, however, it is the board's decision. So we do have to have a motion on a slate, so I either entertain a motion or further discussion on this. So I leave it to members of the board.
I think the present board as constituted is doing a hell of a job, and I would continue to support them and move to vote to keep the present board members in the positions they are at, Lou as chairman and Jean as clerk.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim. There's a motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Jean.
Second if she can't second.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you can second.
Right.
Second by Mike DeCoulis.
2.1.
Okay, so first by Jim Sears, second by Mike DeCoulis. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, well, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. So the motion has been made, and thank you very much, and I've enjoyed working with you all and continue, and we look forward to working with you again for the coming year.
Great.
Great, thank you.
I do have to recuse myself for the next item.
Okay, very good. So just for the record, Jim Sears will be recusing himself from the next item. Okay, we'll give him a moment to step away. Great, thank you. So the next item here is the Beaver Brook Woods definitive subdivision, 303 to 333 Maple Street. It's a request by Beaver Brook Woods LLC for the release of the performance guarantee for the Beaver Brook Woods definitive subdivision. And could you introduce yourself for the record, sir?
John Colantoni, for the record, from Beaver Brook Woods LLC subdivision. Here, just to get the subdivision finally released, want to thank Josh and the planning department for all their help through a number of items throughout the years, and the same to the board as well. Really appreciate it. And that's really it for tonight, and if there's any questions.
Okay, great. Any questions from members of the board? Start with Jean.
No, I looked over the engineering memo, and it seems like everything has been taken care of.
Tim.
No questions. Congrats on finishing the project.
Thank you.
Mike.
No questions. Congrats.
Thank you.
And I have no questions, and I echo congratulations on completion. That's great.
Thank you.
So, all right,
Appreciate it.
Very good. So, in terms of what we need, I believe we do have a decision in our packets. Can I ask the clerk to read the decision?
Certificate of completion and release of municipal interest in performance security. The undersigned, being a majority of the planning board of the town of Danvers, have determined that the construction of ways and installation of municipal services shown on the plan entitled Beaver Brook Woods Definitive Subdivision in Danvers, Massachusetts, dated April 23rd, 2019, revised through August 7th, 2019, known as the Beaver Brook Woods Definitive Subdivision, have been fully and satisfactorily completed by the applicant in accordance with the board's rules and regulations to serve all lots. The plan is recorded in the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds as Plan Book 477, Plan 70. The performance of the subdivision is secured by $17,600 held under a tripartite agreement. Pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81-U, and in consideration of completion of said construction and installation, the Danvers Planning Board hereby releases its interest in the performance security referred to above, executed as of the 13th day of May, 2025.
Okay, thank you, Jean. It's been moved. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, second by Tim Spittle. Very good. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. And as was noted, Jim Sears did not participate. He recused himself. So very good. It's been moved and approved. Josh, is there anything else that's needed with respect to this?
No, that's it.
Okay, great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So we're back here. So if Jim Sears can hear us here, Jim can come back into the, oh. Okay. All right, so Jim Sears is making his way back, and very good. Our next agenda item is, third agenda item is Trask Lane, full release of covenant. A request for a full release of a covenant established on August 28, 1972, which is associated with the definitive subdivision plan entitled, quote, "Proposed Access to Folly Hill Development, Danvers, Massachusetts," end quote, and dated June 2nd, 1972, and also known as Trask Lane, Danvers, Mass. So, Josh, where do we stand on this? It's my understanding that there's that the applicant has made a request for a continuance?
Yes, that is true. There is a representative from the development team, Attorney Samasco. I wasn't sure if you wanted to just say a very brief few words, or just we want to do the continuance, or
Sure.
what, I guess I would
Sure.
defer to you.
That would be great.
I'd
Yes,
defer
thank
to
you.
Hi, good evening, members of the board. Miranda Samasco from Glovsky & Glovsky on behalf of Corcoran. We have, as you know, amended our original request with the board, requesting a partial release, and that was amended to be a request for a full release some number of weeks ago. We are still engaged in, I would say, ongoing discussions with town council about the best way to proceed, and we are also engaged in our MIPA process, which we are scheduled to sort of wrap up end of June, beginning of July. And we are still sort of knee-deep in our permitting for the Beverly Planning Board. So in light of those factors, we had originally just requested that the planning staff make a request to table this matter indefinitely. However, I think staff's preference was to continue to a date certain. So we are suggesting that the board's meeting in July would be an appropriate date to continue to, with the caveat that we may very well ask for further time, but that at least, I think, satisfies the procedural requirements.
Okay. Right, and it's my understanding, Attorney Samesco, that it would be the July 22nd, 2025 meeting.
Correct. I'm sorry if I misspoke. Yeah.
No, you just said July. I just wanted to be clear in terms of the date. So, okay, very good. I appreciate you appearing today and giving an update on where things stand. So, So Josh, in terms of this, they need a motion. I mean, because it's a request for a continuance, I guess we can't go much really further into the merits of things.
Yes, yeah, right. That's, I think that update was helpful, Attorney Samasco, but yes, because it's being continued, I think it would be appropriate to not speak too much more about the matter.
Right, unless any members have any questions, I guess, with respect only very narrow to the continuance itself. Any?
I had one question. Because you said that you're still sort of working with Beverly Planning Board. One update I was very curious about, because we talked about originally, was you said, I believe you represented that they had rejected the idea of opening that road to County Way. And I was just curious if there was any further discussion on that.
Yeah, we have had discussions with the city. And in fact, the MIPA office asked that those discussions be undertaken. And the city is not able to open up that access.
Not able or not willing?
I'm not going to speak for the mayor on that.
That's all. Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Tim. Any other further questions with respect to the continuance itself? Okay. Okay, hearing none then, can I ask the clerk to make a motion on the continuance?
I make a motion, we continue Trescling full release of covenant to our July 22nd, 2025 meeting.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, second by Tim. Okay, any further discussion on the motion for continuance? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion passes, so we'll see you again in July the 22nd.
Thank you all very much
Okay.
for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yep. Okay. All right, so let's move on into the next agenda item, which is a discussion related to the transportation needs assessment. This is a discussion about draft recommendations, and you all should have received a copy of this. And Josh, do you want to give a bit of an intro on this? I know we've had some, I believe we did have a presentation. I think it was actually in the minutes that we just reviewed here.
Oh, okay.
The March minutes from, I believe it was from Sarah Scott from
That's right.
MAPC.
That's right. So I think where staff and with MAPC, in terms of discussion tonight, these are recommendations that came about through speaking with some folks in town and looking at the results from the transportation survey. And I think in terms of this evening, I think a couple things that I'd like to bring up and part of the discussion are kind of high level in looking over these 4 recommendations, in that, is there anything that the group feels is missing? Is there anything in this set of recommendations that is completely inappropriate or seems kind of out of bounds, or why would this be included? It's not that important, or should be modified significantly. And then also, I think ultimately, if we could come away from this evening about with sort of not necessarily ranked choice voting, but sort of what would be the board, from the board's perspective, what would be, your number 1 most important, number 2, number 3, number 4 type situation. I mean, obviously, there's 5 of you, and it might be different for all 5 of you, but if staff could get a sense for just that hierarchy, we feel like that would be beneficial.
Okay.
So.
And just so we can, just for purposes, I'm reading off this here, and so for those who might be, viewing it at home, the recommendations I saw here, the 4 were the first priority recommendation 1, and again, you're asking for us to, look at, I guess, to see if anything's missing, anything's bad, as well as rank them. But at least, so not in any necessarily order, but it's listed here, priority recommendation 1.
Right.
Update the complete streets prioritization plan. Priority recommendation 2, promote existing transit services available in Danvers. 3, Priority recommendation 3, revise the zoning bylaw to promote sustainable development. And priority recommendation 4, develop a parking management plan for downtown. So that seems to be the 4. Okay? So, so I guess in terms of walking through it, I mean, do we want to, how's the board going to do it? Do we want to walk through each one? Or go into terms whatever you see as your choice? What do you say?
Well, I think we should walk through them just for the benefit of the audience and let them know what we're deciding and just give kind of a thumbnail sketch on each one, and we can go deeper if we need to.
Yeah. Sounds good. So why don't we start with the first priority recommendation 1? So, Josh, you want to read through it? I can read through it, whatever the.
Do you have a preference, or I can't? If you'd like me to, I can. You want me to just read that first, kind of the first paragraph for each one? Would that be helpful? All right. So the first one is the priority recommendation 1: update the complete streets prioritization plan. Danvers complete streets prioritization plan was done in 2019, which means that it's over 5 years old. Mass Department of Transportation recommends that plans are updated. The complete streets plans are updated every 5 years so that they accurately reflect community needs. Importantly, having an updated prioritization plan will enable the town to unlock up to $500,000 in construction funding to implement one or more projects identified in the plan. Oversight of the planning process should be jointly shared by engineering staff and the Department of Public Works and planning staff and the Department of Land Use and Community Services. For more information about complete streets, see Appendix E of this memo. Just for context, so basically, I don't have it all completely memorized, the process, but essentially, planning and engineering, I was here at the end of, for the 2019 plan, planning and engineering staff would essentially put together a list of the 15 to 20 type of like infrastructure, mostly roadway, pedestrian projects, or essentially what it ended up being like intersections that we felt were like very like that should be updated, improved. You know, for instance, you know, like the intersection out front of Town Hall, the main Danvers Square, and we just we kind of ranked it town staff for the state. You know, these are intersections and or roadways that we would, you know, in an ideal world, sort of like what we're doing with this process, we'd kind of ranked it based on different criteria and metrics. And with that plan, then the state, we would be able to potentially get significant funding to do them.
Now, the priority for this would be in terms of complete streets, and from when I'm reviewing some of the, you know, then there's language that says once you update the complete streets prioritization plan, you can, and it goes into other things that can be done, which include, you know, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure projects,
Right.
new and widened sidewalks, pedestrian crossings, pedestrian signal upgrades, bike lanes, shared use path connections, bike parking, you know, comprehensive street and sidewalk maintenance plan. So this seems to be focused, when it talking about intersections and such, you're talking more about not focused on automobiles or cars or trucks, but more in terms of pedestrians, people on
the
bikes,
word
walking.
Is like, it's the word, you know, that I think it was referenced, I think when Sarah was here, when someone asked what is complete streets, it's, you know, it's cars, but it's also, you know, if we were going to spend a decent amount of money on upgrading or improving this intersection, not only would it be to improve the car experience, but pedestrians, potentially bicyclists, you know, making it ADA. So it's multimodal potentially. So there's a lot of you know, layers to it. So.
Got it, okay. So in terms of the, and I think I heard Brian speak at the last select board meeting about the, sort of the results of some of the transit, you know, the survey that was done. And I think he indicated, didn't he say that one of the biggest issues that people had was, or concerns that people had was, I guess, walkability?
Yeah, I think he alluded to anecdotal that there was a significant amount of sort of interest or comments about, right, improving walkability throughout town, you know, updating, improving sidewalks, making new sidewalks, you know, putting crosswalks in, you know, appropriate locations. So There certainly seems to be an interest in enhancing those features of town, for sure.
Got it, okay. All right, so that's a discussion of priority, of that first priority recommendation. Did members of the board, do we want to talk about that, or do we prefer that Josh go through each of them? Any preference?
Maybe just one question on this, because it says we have a complete streets prioritization plan. Can we see that?
Sure. I'm not sure if it's expired or
Just to get a sense for what's in it.
Sure.
Would be helpful.
Yeah.
I'd also note that this refers to an Appendix E.
Yeah, I know. I didn't.
Is there more to this memo?
I haven't seen that myself, so I will. When I find that, I'll send that around too.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay.
So this 500,000 goes to any one of these four, just the first one?
Just the first one. So let's say, for instance, this is all just me talking. Let's just say town staff felt like this intersection in front of town hall could use a serious upgrade improvement. We could apply for the state to up to 500 grand to help us, upgrade that intersection, essentially. Unfortunately, the money doesn't go as far as it used to. So you'd think that you'd be able to do several, but that's not necessarily the case. But yeah, that 500 grand, Jim, would just go to the first recommend. The 500 grand is just the Complete Streets program.
So would that have to be put on the 2026 budget? Or I'm assuming, that money would not be available for this 2025 because it's a fiscal year?
Sure. I'm not exactly sure when it would. I think their applications to submit are generally in the spring. So, and we might have to wait for the spring of 2026, but I'm not sure exactly the time frame when it would start and stop. But
Yeah, I would think that the money would be spent for this year already.
that's very likely, yes. But
So if we can get the money, let's get the money. Yeah, so if someone's offering you $500,000, that's a lot of money for.
Right.
I know it's probably not in the big scheme of things. You guys said
No, I mean,
do this, but
Yeah.
that's $500,000 that we don't have that could be used.
we did in 2019 or 2020. We did have when we went through the whole process. We did have a couple of projects lined up and everything, but just unfortunately, the state they weren't chosen to be awarded the.
So is it a bidding process when you say, if we come up and say, we come back and say, okay, let's go for the money first and try to get that? Are we bidding to get that money, or is that money not guaranteed? Is that what you're saying?
It's not guaranteed, no. But-
It's a grant of up to 500,000, so they may, in their wisdom, decide that our application may warrant 500,000 or it may warrant
Sure.
40,000.
Yes, something of that nature, yes. There is discretion at the state's level whether your project is worthy, or depending on how much money is in the bucket that all the other communities are vying for that amount of money.
So would the DPW and/or staff have a priority? You mentioned the intersection in front of the town hall. I don't see that as, I know it's not perfect, but I don't know if is there a particular spot in town where there are a lot of accidents, or
That's part of the
Or
whole
just a
process.
a lot of updating that needs to be done to the
You know,
roadway?
Yeah, just anecdotally, we do get a decent amount of comments just because there's I was just using that as an example, just
Yeah.
for conversation. Obviously, where we sit, intersections that do have, higher crashes would rise in terms of our hierarchy of this intersection does have a very significant amount of automobile and/or pedestrian, events, and that would probably, as during our process in creating a hierarchy, would raise that particular geography, compared to other places.
And would that be only local roads? Because I'm sure people have problem with Elliott Street and 128, and that's an experience in of
Yeah.
itself, but that's a state highway.
Sure, I believe. Don't hold me to it. I believe we would only probably be doing local intersections, or it doesn't have to be. It doesn't
Non-numbered roads, right?
Yeah, and I just keep using intersections as an example. They don't necessarily have to be intersections on that. Some of these bullet points that Lou mentioned, any of these types of physical infrastructure projects. It doesn't have to be, it was just,
Right.
I just said intersection. It's just easy to,
Well, and it could be pedestrian safety. I know that was an issue that came up even in terms of some, even like, even a recent development on High Street in terms
right.
of
So
traffic.
right. So that was a real example that we discussed recently. If we felt like planning and engineering and we, let's just call it the High Street corridor, right, needed and, needed significant pedestrian improvements, maybe that's something that we would throw on this list, right? And then
Probably to combine with because I know that we talked about a little bit about the new mitigation fee that's been,
yeah, right. And then, right, there's that piece to it too. There's the different pieces and layers to all of these things.
I wasn't here for the first presentation on this, so could you actually help me understand? This is a community needs assessment.
Yep.
There's a complete streets prioritization plan, and then I understand there to be a transportation needs assessment that's encompassing that plus more, which might fit into a master plan. How do I understand what we do with this? Like, what's the
Yeah.
implementation steps beyond this? Because we say we need to update the complete streets prioritization plan, like, who does that? That comes after.
Say that one more time. The last piece.
Start with one question at a time. Sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you. Complete streets prioritization plan. It says we need to update that. Who would do that?
That would be planning and engineering staff,
Okay.
but we could share it with you folks if we felt like that was necessary or helpful or beneficial.
not to interject, that's why you want some direction in terms of if this is a priority from us, we could at least say to plan staff, yeah, we want this one as number one
Sure.
priority or number two, what have you.
So where you're going, this is just the recommendations from the transportation needs assessment. How I view it is this transportation section would be more than just these recommendations. In this document, I haven't seen it or a draft or anything, but I'm thinking that it might be more like let's just say 8 to 15 pages, transportation town of Danvers. Ultimately, this could potentially be a chapter within the master plan. And then within this chapter are these recommendations associated with transportation. Does that make sense?
So there is a separate document beside, this is just the summary of a separate document.
This is just a summary of the recommendations within the transportation chapter of a potential master plan.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and who is authoring that chapter of the master plan?
MAPC, Sarah Scott, and MAPC, along with planning staff and MAPC, are kind of working together. But this is their MAPC put these recommendations together, but in consultation with Brian and the survey, the transportation survey, and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yep. So having a chapter to a master plan is good.
Yes.
Is there a plan for the rest of the master plan? Not to get ahead of myself, but like this recommends zoning update, for example.
Yeah.
That would be something for which it would be helpful to have a master plan.
Right. So not to get too off, the housing piece, the housing production plan that we also spoke about a month or two ago, the idea is that you could potentially, once that chapter or section once our housing production plan is also finalized, which needs to come back to the board and have a conversation about that too. The idea where we sit, or planning staff sits, is that could potentially be the housing chapter in a master plan.
Yeah.
And then this transportation would be the transportation chapter, and we're trying to fill a master plan generally is comprised of like 6 different sections or chapters, and we're sort of doing these individual plans with the idea that they could potentially cumulatively be a master plan of some nature. But that's the idea or hope. We're trying to still, I think Brian's trying to figure out if the state would allow us to do something of that nature, but that's the idea.
Okay.
The goal.
Last question, I
So,
promise.
yeah, no.
So does the master plan what is the framing of the purpose of the master plan? Because if these are recommendations, they're sort of aspirational, not guaranteed to happen.
Sure.
I would have understood a master plan to be the plan of what we actually think we're going to implement. Is there a meaningful difference between those two things? Or like, we don't necessarily need to do all 4 of these. Someone's recommended them.
Yeah.
We haven't decided if we're going to do them or not. Will the master plan need to solidify these are the ones we're going to do?
I mean, you probably wouldn't put something in it that you didn't actually really want. You wouldn't, if there was something that was so far-reaching or kind of out there that,
You see my question though, right? Is like someone recommends something, then we have the authority to say, these are the ones we want to do, that's our master plan. Like there's a step between those
Yeah.
two, correct?
And I think what we're doing today is,
Yeah.
I think one of the things they want is to be able to, so that we can look at this, sift it through, and be able to provide them feedback, like this is what we want, or what we feel are priorities that I think are implemented, and I would imagine ultimately go into a,
there is usually in a master plan like an implementation chapter or section, or like, you know, like, I guess what we're talking right now is, yeah, in a master plan, if there were things in here that we felt we shouldn't be doing, then we should not be included in this document.
Okay.
Does that
got
make
it. Yep.
But so if there is something that you really, really want to see, or you think the town should be pursuing, we should definitely add it.
Well, sorry, I said that was my last question, but I
Yeah.
lied.
that's good.
So I assume that there's sort of data underlying these recommendations,
Yeah, I mean, there's like quantitative,
some sort of projection of traffic.
yeah, I mean, I think we know, yeah, I mean, well, in particular, which one in particular, like, is there one in particular?
Just
I mean,
in general, right? Because, you know, the updating the streets prioritization plan seems obvious because we have it and needs to be updated. But for example, like, the recommendations they made for 3, revise the zoning bylaws, and some of the things they specifically mention. I guess I'm just kind of curious where those recommendations come from in terms of, like, do we have to just take them at face value? Do we agree with them anecdotally based on our opinion? Or is there like data under here about, here's the trajectory of growth, here's the traffic patterns we see, and we think parking needs to be changed by X?
I mean, just to,
Did
you know,
you
Jim, I'm just picking up just in terms of the, just looking at the transportation needs assessments, even that the town, on the town website, sort of walks through the different tasks, which includes like an existing condition analysis, stakeholder focus groups and relationship building, community engagement, issue analysis, and then recommendations, and then a budget. So I would assume then that there is particularly when it comes to the existing conditions analysis,
Right,
that's where sort of you got the data.
right, for sure, right.
So, and I assume that there is a.
Yeah, so I
this-
think,
There's I assume that if we want to see the work, that's available.
yeah, I mean, I feel like, I think these are the recommendations. Like, these would probably be like the end of this section. I'm assuming that there would be the data or the, you know, that I think you're looking for, or would be, you know, the first couple pages of this chapter. If you feel like that would be, we could probably provide that soon.
Yeah, I
if
mean,
that-
these are. I'm happy to talk about these topics
Sure.
at a high level and just my personal opinion of which I think are important. But
Sure.
There's obviously a lot of data that went into this, and I think just having more to sort of chew on and
Okay. So kind of like, it seems it would be beneficial to see more than just the recommendations, which is fine, which is a comment of it in and of itself would be helpful.
yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Like, sort of, it's like, where do these come, we are sitting, it's like, where are these coming from? Is that what you're sort of
Yes.
alluding to?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
And
That's right.
particularly some of the, like, even some of the items that are mentioned, like, you know, Appendix E of the memo. So
Right.
like having that actual appendix to take a look at, as well as any of the, access to any of the, you know, any of the findings, or.
Sure.
I mean, it could mean, you don't want to, you know, I'm not sure if this is something that, you know, I know that Sarah presented to us as a group, you know, a month and a half ago, but maybe this is something that we could, you know, she could either, you know, come back or speak to us virtually,
Right.
you know, now that we have the, you know, this draft.
Sure. It would be helpful to see holistically this whole chapter.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Tim, anything further for the moment?
Nope. That's helpful. Thank you.
Jean, anything you wanted to?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Mike, anything?
Are we providing like thoughts on these right now? Are we waiting till we get through them to give our thoughts? What is our? What's our plan
It's a
here?
discussion, so whatever we can I think for benefit of people from, at home watching, I think it would be good if we could sort of walk through them.
Okay, so let's walk through them and
Okay.
then go back.
Yep.
That's fine.
Jim, do you have anything further before we went to the
No,
next?
I agree. Let's finish the four main topics.
Okay, great. So the next item is priority recommendation 2, promote existing transit services available in Danvers. Josh, you want to
Yeah,
give
sure.
a summary of that?
Yeah, I guess I'll just read that first paragraph and then
Sure,
we can
go
get
ahead.
into it. While Danvers does not have robust transit access, there are a variety of public transit options that are available for people who live, work, and visit the town, including the Salem Skipper, Senior Shuttle, Veterans Van, MBTA Bus, CATA Bus, and Logan Express. Since each of these services has different operators and ridership, many people who could benefit from them don't know they exist. The town could work with these different operators to develop a promotional campaign to raise awareness of existing transit services in Danvers. The campaign should include clear information about routes, fees, hours of operation, frequency of service. The town should work with large employers, small local businesses, schools, service providers, and community-based organizations to design materials and identify opportunities for engaging potential transit riders, such as info sessions, open houses, and fare-free days. Materials could include a centralized web page with information hosted by the town, flyers with links and QR codes to the web page, and a short video about available transit services that can easily be shared through social media. Materials should be available in English and Spanish.
Okay.
So I think that this is just, so yes, unlike several of our abutting neighbors, we don't have commuter rail. However, there is clearly, a decent amount of transit services that are operating in town, and I think that they sort of work right now sort of in isolation or silos. And I think this recommendation is sort of saying, they should, if they could communicate a little bit better, or if the town could sort of work as maybe a conduit of some nature to kind of connect all of these, services that currently exist and, maybe not be existed, we could highlight them better, right? And I think that that's what this is sort of
Okay.
pursuing.
Sounds good. All right, Why don't we just move on to let's get through all of them
Sure.
here. So let's move on to
Sure.
priority recommendation 3, revise the zoning bylaw to promote sustainable development.
Sure. Danvers zoning bylaw reflects an outdated approach to land use management that isolates different uses and makes it harder for people to get around with their car. A more sustainable approach to development would make it easier for people to walk, bike, and roll around Danvers, which would reduce traffic congestion, support more frequent transit services, and reduce emissions. There are many ways that the zoning bylaw can be improved, but the most important step is to reduce or eliminate minimum off-street parking requirements for new development. Reducing parking requirements means that more space can go to housing and open space than surface parking lots and garages, while simultaneously making housing more affordable. Developers will provide the amount of parking that they think the market demands because they want to attract buyers and tenants. Some communities don't require any parking and expect developers to tell them how much parking they need to make a project financially feasible. At a minimum, Danvers should reduce the amount of parking required for multifamily residential uses to one space or less for each dwelling unit, regardless of the number of bedrooms. The town should also reduce the amount of parking required for commercial uses, such as stores, offices, shopping centers, restaurants, and healthcare facilities. Working with the planning board, the town could engage MAPC to identify appropriate parking minimums across a range of uses. The town could also undertake this effort internally with its own staff. In my interpretation of this, I believe that this is mostly referring to not downtown, if that makes sense. I could be wrong. I could be saying something erroneous, but I know we've done a lot of work in terms of parking and land use downtown, and I think this is referring mostly to not downtown, where if you were to do residential units outside of downtown, it's 2 spaces per unit, and I think sort of looking at commercial parking outside of downtown, such as our large commercial areas, such as the mall, 114 and Route 1. It's sort of looking at our parking probably is probably outdated in terms of it's higher than probably in reality. Even something like on the books, like the self-storage facilities, it's very, very high in terms of what happens in reality. So I think how I would sum this paragraph up would be basically an analysis of parking outside of downtown, essentially. Like our parking table, section 10. That's how I view this. When I read this, that's what I'm interpreting.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't work downtown.
Yeah. Or it's like, I don't think that we've clearly,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to be really,
And I don't think it works in Massachusetts. If we're in Florida, maybe, but we have 6 months of winter. You don't see too many people riding their bikes from November to March.
but
It's too cold. It's not work, doesn't work.
I guess if I'll just jump to the number 4 then,
Sure,
if that's all
yeah.
right.
so develop a parking management plan for downtown.
Sure. The town did a parking study in 2015, which we discussed last week or a couple weeks ago. The highlighted issues with how on and off street parking is managed downtown. While the study is now 10 years old, it offers a comprehensive approach for improving how people access parking downtown. Before implementing the study's recommendations, the town should update the parking utilization analysis so it will have accurate current data. To inform decision-making, the town could engage MAPC to conduct this analysis or hire a private consultant or undertake this effort internally. The town may want to consider waiting to conduct the analysis until Maple Square reaches a certain occupancy level. I guess in summary, how I read this, as it sort of alludes to, that 2015 parking study, it's 2025. It probably makes sense, especially with the likely and projected and current kind of development that will happen downtown.
Right.
It probably would be appropriate, to take a more recent look, a recent kind of view of what's happening. Particularly, I think it's alluded to in here, when Maple Square is fully or very close to being fully occupied. Obviously, there's been a couple other development projects that have been approved. And, I don't think anyone wants, whether it's real or perceived, a parking problem. I think it's something that, something that we would want to get ahead of. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we've gone through all of these. So we've definitely heard some comments on priority recommendation 1 about the complete street. So I think we need some additional backup information, I guess it seems. I have some thoughts just based on reviewing it, but why don't I go back to the board in terms of looking at I know we spoke about the priority recommendation 1. What about priority recommendation 2 about promoting existing transit? Any thoughts on that? Jim?
Well, I would like to propose that we do a meld of 1, 2, and 4, because I think at the end of the day, as was mentioned, we're going to have a couple hundred more new units downtown in the not-too-distant future, and downtown should be the focus. I mean, if there's any way we can get up to $500,000 to use toward focusing on downtown, whereby you add, you look at additional parking, you look at maybe some MBTA and/or Skipper, CATA, or whatever type of public transportation. Say you put a stop where the old train station was on Hobart Street across from the 140-something unit building there. That would kind of blend kind of the intent of 1, 2, and 4 and get some money that the town doesn't have to pay and/or the developer, and you're going to have, you're going to put in place the promotion of this public resource that's very inexpensive for people to use. You're going to have 140 units there with up to 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, so you could have a fair amount of people there. Hardware store gets developed, you get another 28 units. High Street further down, Murphy's, a lot of those places, if in the next few years you're going to see it. And we've got resources that the state's going to give us, hopefully, to promote this and also have some infrastructure improvements to provide for it. So can we kind of blend? I don't think they have to be separate and distinct priorities. I mean, if we can kind of sell it as part of the ask for the $500,000, hey, we're going to do this, we need some infrastructure improvement and/or at the same time, we're going to be promoting these other services that are provided that people don't know about. I didn't know anything about the Skipper until we had that meeting.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people don't know about it. And older folks that don't go to the senior center might not know about it. So I think it's important to get the word out, especially if we can, if we were to encourage that, is there a ceiling, is there a limit? They're going to have to buy more of those Skipper vehicles, because I know it's used primarily in Salem.
Right.
We probably need to get some more information on that.
Sure.
So that's what I,
So I guess in summary, Jim, focus, and I sort of had a similar feeling as I was reading it myself, a focus sort of on downtown, but elements of 1, 2, but like downtown, the focus, and then 1, 2, and 4, the geography of downtown being a strong.
I mean, that's what we've been doing all of our planning for the last several years about.
Right.
And, if we've got some more money that can help kind of organize it and
Right.
clean it up.
Right. Okay.
Thanks, John. Jean, do you want to add anything at all, or anything? any
Yeah, I
thoughts?
think that was a good idea, Jim. Maybe if we could look at where the traffic is coming from and going to in the downtown, we could see if there's a way to mitigate that. Like if we see that, a lot of people that are moving into the condos are going, I don't know, to the mall or like one specific area, then we could try and get transit on those focused areas. Or even if it's like people cutting through the town when they could be taking 62, or if there's another route that we could maybe encourage.
Anything further, Jean, on that?
Nope.
Okay. Mike, anything you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can combine it, it's great. I think sometimes when you try to do too much, sometimes everything gets done partially and not to the best of the ability. So I think that's a great idea if we can get it all done. I just think it depends on money and value and stuff like that, and how much we get from that $500,000 and how far it goes. I personally think that sidewalks are a huge thing. I think that didn't realize how bad it was until I started having kids and walking around with strollers and riding bikes. And I actually rode my bike to my son's school today to drop him off and pick him up, and it was absolutely atrocious how bad the bumps were. And I just was shocked how bad the sidewalks are, that I didn't realize how bad they were. So I think sidewalks like in the area of downtown so people can actually get to downtown would be great too. So I think that's great. And then, sorry, I'm just remembering what's in, and then this will probably be the unpopular opinion of my thoughts, but I think a lot of the concerns that people have about downtown parking are that people don't want to walk. And again, that's maybe an unpopular opinion, but I've never had an issue with parking downtown. And again, maybe an unpopular opinion, but I think if you're willing to walk a little bit, there's a lot of spots available. I just actually looked on Google Earth while we were sitting here, and from like Supremes and Rocco's, the distance to some of those lots is basically the same distance as if you're walking from the front door at Target to like the back spots at Target. Like it's not that far away, but I think it seems that far away if you can't park right out front. So I think it's great if we can not have a further problem. But to me, I think the streets and the sidewalks and the crosswalks are more important if I had to prioritize them. But I think to Jim's point, yeah, if you can do it all, it's great. I just
Maybe
it's hard to.
maybe like maybe another recommendation related to sidewalk recommendation, like a fifth recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a personal thought on it. I don't know
Yeah.
I think that all the board should have comments and give us
Yeah.
feedback and everything, but that's just like my personal feelings from experiences. I know you mentioned like the intersection out front of Town Hall, and before I lived in that area, I would have said to Jim's point, I would have been like, I don't feel
Right.
like it's that bad. And then
Right.
if you try to cross
Yeah.
that with kids,
Right.
like with a stroller or bikes, it's impossible to get to the other side. There's no crosswalk. Literally, you have to like go through the train crossing to get to the other side and use that little island as like a defense mechanism to hope no car gets to you, so. But I think that sidewalks and pedestrian crossings and safety of like truncated domes for like ADA accessibility for people is super, super important, so I think that would be good as well. I know they're doing that around town anyway, but I think continuing to do that so that people are able to walk around and enjoy the downtown area, but I think that's everything, so thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike.
One thing you can do, Mike, is if you have a particular sidewalk that's troublesome, you can let the street department know.
Yeah.
Because they will go out and put you on a list.
Sure.
Because I had that in front of my house and my neighbors, and with the roots from the trees, and they come in and they cut it all out and they put in a new sidewalk.
Yeah, and
So-
I've talked to them before about
mean-
my area, and they've been great about it. I think there's just so many of them, like when you're in the downtown area, there's, like, again, I never noticed it until I had strollers and bikes
Yeah.
and stuff, and then I realized how bad they were, because all of a sudden you're going over like all this stuff. But yeah, it's a great point, Jim, that we should be more diligent about
Yeah, I mean,
reaching out to them.
People have an issue, they should definitely reach out, because the town will respond. I mean, they're pretty responsive.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a list, just like the streets, how many
Yep.
streets are gonna do this year, but they can definitely get you on the list.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Sounds good. Tim, anything you want to add on these?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a curmudgeon, and I can't get over the fact that what are we planning and prioritizing around? Is it like the town as it is right now? We've recently had a lot of zoning changes. ADUs are in effect. I just watched the select board debates, and everyone seems up in arms about zoning. Like, I assume it's going to keep changing. I kind of want to know like what the projection is. What do we expect in terms of how people will be commuting? Like a travel demand analysis, the actual underlying data that says this is really high traffic, really low traffic, congestion at this point versus that point. Like, it's hard for me to prioritize when it's like, yeah, I can tell you about my experience. Parking downtown's never been an issue for me, so that's not really high on my list, right? But if we change the zoning for other areas of town, then suddenly the priorities shift, right? So it's like, kind of feels like a moving target, and it's hard to stand right now just looking at this piece of paper and say what the highest priority is. Like, I think everything I've heard so far, I agree with, right? Like, pedestrian safety, really important, yes. Pushing strollers on the sidewalks really stinks. But, like, that's my biased opinion based on my recency bias of pushing a stroller down the sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to sort of foresee what the town's going to look like when Maple Square is now being, people are moving in, right? Will that change traffic patterns? Will that change which are, like, the priority intersections based on incident rates? It's just kind of, I need more data to say, like, here's our best bang for our buck. And I'd also highlight that we have this complete streets plan that's now 5 years old. It doesn't sound like we actually did anything.
We tried to.
Tried to. But
We
didn't.
did. We submitted several
Okay.
projects.
We
that-
have this, where is it? The parking study from 2015, that sounds like we didn't implement anything.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily an implementation thing. I think it was just sort of like a snapshot. I don't know if it was, I don't believe, I don't have it memorized, but I don't believe at the time.
Right.
At
It
the
says
time it-
before implementing the study's recommendations, but it's a 10-year-old study. So we haven't implemented them yet.
I don't know, yeah, and I don't even know if there were recommendations. Like,
Yeah.
it was just like, these are the, if these are the 5 public lots downtown,
Right.
there's not like, we should, I don't have it memorized. There might be we should do a giant parking garage. I don't have that memorized, but
Right.
I don't think it said something of that nature. It was just sort of like, we have these 1,000 spots.
Or better wayfinding, that sort of thing, which can help
Sure.
alleviate
There
people.
probably was something of that nature, which we are actually, yeah.
So
we are trying to do that, yeah.
I
we are
kind of
trying to-
see, like, much like Jim, how he wanted to kind of combine a few of these, I kind of see different implementation choices, right? Because, like, making the existing transportation information more easily accessible, like, we can do that right now. Even if it changes, you'll have a medium to communicate
Right.
that. The parking communication of, like, what's a better place, giving people a map or something like that, we could do that right now. Those types of things I would prioritize because they're more actionable versus, like, which street should we be prioritizing or how should we change the zoning bylaws and what might that change in terms of travel demands. Like, that feels like a much harder thing to plan for. I mean, you shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, but I kind of want to see a little bit more about, like, what data do we have?
Okay.
And I know, like what Jim said, downtown's been such a focal point, and there's clearly a lot for us to digest in terms of what might change as development comes in. But, like, Endicott Street, Liberty Tree,
yeah.
like, we have to do something about that. I know
coming.
we've talked a lot about rezoning that, and, like, I would prioritize that and then figure out if that's going to be our transportation hub, which I almost spit out my coffee when I saw Simon Property Group on here, right? Like,
Hey, we'll get to them tonight, don't worry.
Oh, good. Yeah, extra agenda item. Yeah, it just feels like we need that, again, I keep harping on master plan, but like, we need the unified vision of what we're planning for
Yeah.
to really make decisions about prioritization.
Well, I think the previous, traffic, the transportation needs, the parking, the study on that dealt with and was usable and used by further traffic studies and used by the board looking at developments that came in the future, like the downtown developments, because we know that, okay, if we do some increased building on Elm Street or Maple Street or this street or that street, we've got the public lots, so we can tie into those public lots. So that was helpful in that sense to identify those.
I assume it informed the zoning, sort of the zoning changes that were ultimately enacted like in 2020.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, Tim, I guess, I wouldn't say that all of your questions are sort of unknowns, right? In terms of even just the downtown parking. We know that there will be, a decent or, amount of new development downtown, right? So that's not sort of with the zoning and just what's happened in the past 2 years. So I know, right, there's lots of unknowns, clearly. But some things I think we sort of, there is information that we can sort of make educated kind of guesses or, hypothesis about what would transpire, right?
I'm just,
Obviously, all
I just
this is
like
a-
more data.
This is all a moving target.
So
clearly.
yeah, and I totally get that. We,
Yeah.
like I said, don't let the perfect be the enemy.
Yeah, yeah.
But for example, if
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about like
Right.
paying for parking downtown, I saw that as one of maybe the things.
Was
to
that in here?
consider. Just as a thing to consider. No one's recommending it.
But it wasn't in here.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was like, traffic mitigation strategies such as, right? Like it wasn't saying
okay.
you should absolutely do that.
Sure.
But like something like that, right? Is like,
That's a
okay,
big right, that's
I'd
a-
like to know the what if analysis. What's the congestion if we don't do it? Hard to find parking. If we do it, what do they think? Right? Like I would want to see more sort of
I-
empirical analyses about that.
And I don't think that anything, even with this document or as this moves forward, is sort of making any real kind of like those type of level, like high level policy, decisions. It's sort of like, should we continue? Is that something that we should,
Right.
consider, right? Or look further into to evaluate, right?
Yeah.
So, but point taken.
That would, Tim?
That's it for me.
Okay.
I mean, that wasn't really, I didn't answer your question about which to prioritize.
I
think
guess where I sit, that's
I said prioritize easily actionable things that we have the information to act on right now.
so number 2. It seems like would be high for you.
2 and some parts of 4, right? Which was create a simple,
So you're
easy to
saying
read
things that
parking
are-
map, right? Like communicating the resources and how to navigate parking that we already have, right? Like that's something we can do right now.
Okay, you have
So
a 2 and
sort
4.
of to summarize where you sit, things that are, lack of a better term, easy or actionable,
Implementable. from
implementable,
today.
if that's a word,
Yep.
it might be, would be high on your list, which is fine.
Yes.
Can we get a summer intern to do some of that? I mean, it seems to me a lot of that stuff, like Tim said, it's something that, it doesn't cost a lot of money. You get someone that, part-time staff person or summer intern or someone could look into doing some of that. I don't know if we
When you
have to
say
have-
that, Jim, I'm sorry, what is, I
Doing
just,
the outreach to the community, saying, okay, here are the programs, here.
yeah, I mean, even just,
center,
even
here-
that really,
that stuff doesn't, it's not huge.
even this, like, I thought the number 2, particularly even just having a website, just listing all these things,
Yeah.
was it, you think it's like simple or easy or whatever, but it's like, that's a great idea
Yeah.
that I, even myself, never really thought about.
I think we gotta we gotta get the money.
That too.
Yeah.
Someone's giving you $500,000, we gotta go for the
that's-
prize.
Yeah, I think that's one of the.
We tried
have to
we
get-
tried to in 2019.
Well, I think that's one of the things in terms of,
You gotta
But we
apply
could,
for it.
but the thing is, we could do all of these things. It's not like they're not mutually exclusive, right?
yeah,
But we don't have to, I mean, you could just say, here's our priority, here's our application, we want a combination of these things, and here's how we're gonna spend your $500,000, we're gonna do this, this, or this. Why does it all have to be kind of under just the construction funding? I mean, can you,
I guess it depends on the criteria for the complete streets
Right.
grant process. So does it have to, does this 500,000 only include anything that's under 1? Or can some of the recommendations from 2 or 4 get kind of, and
parking management-
maybe beef up the application, so it's so we're more likely to get closer to the 500,000.
One is-
versus 40,000.
Like, one is, I think the 500 is generally for real infrastructure, not plans, if that makes sense. So you probably couldn't use that for the parking study, and you probably couldn't do,
Isn't it for construction?
yes.
Yeah.
It's for like construction, physical, tangible, where the other things are more on
But I
this.
guess, so it's for local construction. We can't put an MBTA bus stop in because that would be within the purview of the state, would it not?
We could put a bus shelter or something of that.
There's
that-
potential, but
Are we,
I mean, there's potential that might be happening, but
okay. Well, I mean, again, if the state's paying for it through the MBTA, we
Right.
don't want to use the same money for something like,
Right.
we want to just use the local money for, because there's a fine line you got to maneuver
yes.
between the MBTA and other, you know.
So Tim sort of alluded to it. I guess where I sit, if there was a little bit more, is it possible to give me a little more feedback about the hierarchy of these, or okay,
Yeah, I can give a little, and just in terms of hierarchy, and I think we got from Tim, I think he said 2 and 4, right? In terms
Yeah,
of
I'm kind of with Jim, 1, 2, and 4.
1, 2, and 4, okay. I'm sort of when I was looking at these, I mean, my hierarchy was, number 1 was, first of all, like in terms of the pedestrian, particularly pedestrian piece for the reasons that was discussed, as well, for the young people, as well as also speaking with a mom who uses a walker. That's something, as people who are older who need to use a walker to get around. I mean, I think that the sidewalks are very, that's important as well for people to be able to. So definitely number 1, that was sort of number 1 in my list. Number 2 struck me as, that was as number 2 in my book as well. And then the last priority for me was 3. Was 4. Policy recommendation 4. So the downtown parking management plan.
was your like it would like, so is this the numbers that how they're listed would be your rank? Would you be?
No.
Oh,
No, my ranking was, in terms of priority, was recommendation 1,
right.
2,
Yep.
4.
Yep. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And then recommendation 3,
Right.
that was one I was, again, I'm a little bit, and again, I was looking at this more as like potentially as whether this was focused on downtown, and I don't even think.
Now I could be completely wrong, but that's how
And you don't even get there, I don't see you can get there in terms of zoning issues with respect to parking unless and until you see how things have shaken out with with Maple Square.
That's why I
and-
sort of think it was not. I think now, Brian, tomorrow's, but Josh, why did you say that at the meeting? But I don't think that. I don't believe that that's referring to. I think it's referring to everything not downtown.
Right, so in my book, that recommendation 3 would be last on the priority list.
So that seems like a sort of. There seems to be a vein throughout the group, without me, if I'm not being accurate, that.
But
Yeah.
number 1, I would say, I'm cool with like doing the sort of the 1, 2, 4 approach. But again, if it was, so long as, but if the $500,000, if it's cleaner to do it as 1,
Yep.
to get the,
Yeah,
to
no,
get
it's
the
not. I
funds,
mean,
then.
we could do all, we could do none. It was just sort of us, sort of getting a
Yeah.
general feeling, and I think I'm starting to get the feeling right that 1, 2, and 4 are sort of higher than 3, but don't want to speak for the group.
Jean, did you have anything?
Yeah. How much does it cost to update the complete streets prioritization plan?
I think it's just a staff. It's just time. It's just us and engineering and whoever else wants to be involved at this town staff level to be involved in the process. But I would envision it would be planning and engineering staff and maybe someone else. But it would just be us meeting a couple times or several times and just doing the application, whatever that means. Some, us, and maybe we would work with a consultant potentially. But
So would it be worth it to just have like a standing every 5 years, repeatedly do that so that we can potentially get access to 500,000 in construction funding?
Yes.
Anything further? I know we have, I think we have, it's not a public hearing, but we do have members of the audience here if they have any, if they have any questions or comments with respect to the transportation community needs assistance. I think I see Mr. Bradstreet's hand up, or unless you were just, okay.
I'm old and tired.
If you want to go to the podium and, sorry.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I brought up a parking garage in the square several times. It wasn't received very well, but I brought it up. My question was, you're talking about $500,000 that can be spent for physical improvements to the roads or whatever. Is that discretionary money? Can some of that be spent on education? Because you mentioned the intersection out here. As bad as it is, I don't think a lot of people understand how they're supposed to approach that intersection.
I don't believe that social engineering is part of the.
Driver's ed.
Oh, you mean education as a,
Yes.
drivers? They
Yes.
should,
Obviously, not for myself, but there are people who are licensed to operate motor vehicles in the state who shouldn't be behind a wheel driving a vehicle. Having said that, some of the people don't understand when they come up to that intersection how they're supposed to get through safely without driving into somebody else who wants to do the same thing. That's the educational part I was talking to, as opposed to improving the sidewalks, which need them. But it was, is that money, some of it be spent on educational purposes?
No.
That was my question.
No, I believe that it's physical and it's physical, tangible, like construction of the sidewalk or road or ADA ramps. It's not something like it doesn't have an educational component.
Is there grant money out there that can be used for educational purposes as far as the streets?
I don't know if there's I think that's driver's ed that you're referring to, but I don't know.
Bradstreet, when you mean educational purposes, are you talking about, like, I remember when I was living in DC, I got a warning ticket for jaywalking. And
That's
I
one
gave me
thing,
they
yes.
gave me a little card that told me about traffic, about walking against the light.
We have working lights,
They do that in
supposedly
DC. They
working
ticket
lights
you for
in the
jaywalking.
center of town. I can't tell you, you've probably seen it too, how many people don't understand that the light is there for their safety. They don't understand that once that button is pressed, the lights have to go through a cycle. They don't automatically come on. And if you drive through the square, there's a crosswalk here, there's a crosswalk there. But I want to go there, so I just walk across the square. To me, that's education.
Okay.
Safety,
Yeah. I think it's worth, Josh, I think maybe just in terms of that, it may be worth, if you can maybe check with staff and maybe if there is any funds available for education, like in terms of,
Okay.
remedial driver ed.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying if there's anything for,
I am not aware of a program of that nature, but we could look into it.
yeah, just that the question's been asked.
I would just remedial driving ed would be appropriate. Thank you.
All right, very good. Yes, please, go ahead. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Yeah, Lois McKenzie, Precinct 3, Town Meeting Member. I just want to say I agree with Mike. More than we put money into bike lanes in town, number one, downtown's not wide enough for them, but beyond that, Brian Zacchelli stood here the other night and said that most people want a walking town.
Oh, yeah. I heard it.
I, like him, I don't have my kids, I have grandchildren pushing around. The sidewalks are horrible. I know Jim says you can have your sidewalks put on a list. You'd have to repair the entire street of River Street to even make it walkable. So that's one priority that I think that everybody in town that wants to respond to the surveys responding in that way. So we need to listen to the people of the town more than some of these studies that we're paying a lot of money for. I wonder somehow how they come to their conclusions. And, you know, the transportation that everybody wants, it's great, but I don't know if anybody realizes the Salem Clipper, you can go anywhere for $2, but guess what? The town pays $8 for every ride that goes out of this town. So the taxpayers are paying the additional money for the people to take the Clipper for $2. So, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for doing what you do. Bill McKenzie, Precinct 3, just voted in.
Congratulations.
The complete street. That to me sounds like a complete street. Sidewalks, berm, trees, drainage. Is that the definition of a complete street?
I mean, it can be. There's different kind of transects of a, you know, it depends on, you know, the environment. It could have sidewalk on one side, it could have sidewalk on both sides, it could have a bike lane, it could have, you know,
Right.
there's lots of different varieties of what it could be.
You know, with just what, you know, all the conversation, you hear complete street. To me, a complete street is what I just mentioned. And we do have numbers of streets in Danvers that needs to be a complete street. Adams Street, nightmare. But that's my opinion. Also, to get back on the public safety and crosswalks, and I know we got sort of up against the wall with the state on Route 35, Purchase Street, High Street there. But when you press that button across, nobody knows it's a light there. You're gonna get killed there. It should be a light like in Danvers Square. It stops everybody, and we can all cross nicely. And with the new developing that's going to be going on, I can see Walgreens going real soon, and that's going to be major there. And then, you know, we just need to look at that type of thing. I know we're up against the wall with the state because of the way they control the lights there, but we should look into that. Very dangerous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, very good, thank you. All right, coming back to the board, any other questions at all, or any other comments with respect to this? So Josh, do you have enough information?
I think so.
Public stuff later?
Excuse me?
Other public comments, other comments later?
No, we don't, not on the agenda. If you have a question about the transportation needs assessment, be willing to,
I need to make this a clear clarity point for you.
if you'd like to get to the, please go to the podium, please introduce yourself and.
Thank you. Karen Nastic, 15 Loxley Road. I was in the car watching some girls go across the street. And I looked at the light to make sure I couldn't, you know, I wasn't missing the light change. And when I took the next picture, I said, where did the girls go? I couldn't see them because they had gone out of the light and into the shadow. Can you see them from there?
No,
Right, that's my point. They're right here.
my eyes aren't that good.
They're right here.
Okay,
So if now this is middle of the day. If you start putting up buildings around them, it's going to be really hard to see people. That's my point. I was looking, I thought they turned around and didn't continue across the street. And they're right in front of me
right,
because the light in the dark.
okay, got it. Thank you. So you're concerned about pedestrian safety? Okay, thank you. Okay. Josh, anything further that you need from us with respect to this, and sort of where do we go from here?
Yeah, no,
Because I know there were some follow-up things that Tim had asked about in terms of sort of some of the
Sure.
background information,
yeah, right,
especially with respect to number one.
right.
And I think that we've presented sort of what our
Yeah,
priorities are in terms of what,
yeah. Seems like there's definitely a strong, you know, the 1, 2, and 4 are definitely high. Certainly,
Yeah, I think like the
Every-
pedestrian such as was
like anything
discussed
kinda
by
like-
us and discussed by the
sure.
by the
Uh,
residents as well.
It seems like a very, like, there's lots of very, where I sit in terms of hierarchy, just anything that like downtown and/or pedestrian focused seems to be kind of raised. So I think from the discussions tonight, I could summarize it and circle back with Brian and Sarah and kind of have a conversation.
Maybe we could put this as an agenda item
Yeah.
for follow-up.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely just need to talk with Brian and Sarah, like what we want to do for like the next steps.
Okay.
Certainly, the next draft or, we will certainly,
Yeah, I'd like to have this on, have this on the agenda for a future meeting, just
Yeah, yeah.
just to sort of close up some of the.
oh yeah, for sure, yeah, no, we weren't gonna, and maybe, as Tim kind of alluded to, maybe it makes sense the next time to have the whole kind of chapter, like, together.
Sure.
So, but yeah, certainly, this is not final. It was just, we just want to have a discussion. But certainly the board will have an opportunity to see kind of the next iteration.
Sure.
For sure.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. So anything further on transportation needs assessment before we move on to the next agenda item?
I think
Tim?
the only thing I would add is just to reiterate that I think the prioritization that I expressed today is like what I think we should act on right now, but I don't want to overlook that recommendation 3 and just the sort of anticipated changes that might be coming to zoning and changes to density that are coming from existing laws. Like, I think there's a bigger question about understanding the projection of where the town's headed to help us with these decisions. So it's kind of like still a very high priority, even though it's a kind of bigger question.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger question, and we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
I think in terms of having the information, but I think it's something that we need to, sort of keep
Yeah.
on the horizon.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, we weren't going to cross it unless tonight there was something on here that was like, why would we ever consider doing that, or that was not appropriate, or whatever. Everything will be included.
Okay.
It was just,
All right, so more to come then.
that's right.
Mr. Bradstreet, did you have something before we move on to the next item?
Again, Bill Bradstreet, town meeting member, precinct 1. One reference is made to studies, and I think the reference was made to a study made 10 years ago. That's too far. It has to be, to my way of thinking, it should be maybe up to 3 years, certainly not 3 years, certainly not relying on 10-year-old information to make a present-day decision.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the recommendations, at least for the priority recommendation 4 about the parking management plan, was that the town should update, before implementing the recommendations, should update the parking utilization analysis. So we'll have accurate current data to inform the decision-making.
Right, and by current, that would be open to your interpretation. Mine would be no more than 3 years, and certainly even less than that, if you're gonna make a decision about improvement in one aspect. How fresh or how new is the information you're gonna be relying on?
Yeah, and I think there was a concern also for Maple Square, that sort of see how things go once Maple Square is rented, and then sort of see where things are from there. So,
Thank you, again.
thank you. All right. All right, next agenda item here. And again, we'll see this again, but thanks for the comments and discussion about it.
Sure.
And next item here, I think we have minutes this is our meeting, I believe this was the March 25th meeting. And I think this is one actually that we had, I believe both, if I'm not mistaken, I believe both Tim and Mike were not
That's right.
at the meeting.
Right. That's right.
Okay. So we do have people had the opportunity to review the minutes from the meeting?
Move to
So-
accept the minutes as written.
Okay.
Second.
Very good. Motion's been made by Jim, second by Jean, to approve the minutes as written from March 25th, 2025. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Oh, Abstain.
Okay.
Abstain.
Okay. 2 abstentions? Okay, very good, but the minutes have passed. Thank you. All right, so that's it for our agenda here. I do notice, Josh, that we have there's some additional materials you
Yeah.
gave us here in terms of a Liberty Tree Mall paving update.
Yeah, there was just a comment at our last meeting, just wanted, the group wanted an update on what's going on in terms of paving at the Liberty
Please
Tree Mall.
tell.
So the document that Lou has, the plan, I guess I could show it to the group actually. Because we have
Yeah, if you can show it
because we
to
have
on the
tech-
screen too, that'd be
We
great.
have technology to do that, so let's do that. Where are we at? Okay, yeah.
So it looks like this is a chart that is from May,
Yep, just got it from Simon, so.
just got from Simon.
Yep. So, just for a reference, so
And for the
Can
record,
everyone see that?
the mall road is a
Different
private
colors?
road.
So areas A, B, and C on this plan were repaved in fall of 2024. And
You said ABC?
A, B, and C.
Okay.
And I was recently told, or last week or the other day, I was told that areas D and E, so the area of Commonwealth Ave, closest to Endicott Street, and Independence Way, the main entrance and exit on Endicott Street are planned or scheduled to be paved in the next couple weeks.
Josh, can you just confirm when you say repaved, are we talking patched or are we talking ripped up and repaved?
I think the second, not
So
just,
the ones that were done in the fall of 2024 were ripped up and
I
repaved?
believe that I don't know the technical terms, but it's
They don't feel new to me, but Jim, I know you go in that area more than I do. so-
they're not
Brand new?
they weren't patched. It
No,
wasn't
there
like
was a small section
Right.
from
So
in
are A,
front
B,
of
and C,
Dick's.
The ones that are there, A, B, and C, are those new?
A is new.
Okay.
Yeah, it's New Logan Express.
B,
Well, no, Logan Express is up in the corner,
that's-
further up
Yeah, yeah.
on the top.
yeah, they did Logan Express.
This is in front of Dick's Sporting
no
Goods.
this right
A is new.
right.
I don't know about B, if they've done B yet, or C.
I don't go that way typically.
I don't think they've done B
so-
or C yet, or D yet.
That's what was communicated to me,
Yeah, I don't
but
know if they've been done yet. Because
I'm fairly certain they have. But
maybe it looks bigger on there.
And you think they were done as in ripped up?
yeah,
It
like
says
Yeah, it wasn't a big
Mill and
area.
overlay.
yeah,
It wasn't a big area.
right. So
Oh, is it on the sheet? that
I'm
it
sorry,
says
Gene, what
ripped?
did you say?
It seems like it's a mill and overlay because they gave a section of
Right.
existing and proposed, and
Okay.
it says partial depth repair and
Right.
milled to depth specified, which is usually pretty
Right.
good indication.
We just don't know if that's for everywhere, right? Or, like, did they do that in all those 5 areas?
I was told, or now, this is just me being messenger, I guess, at this
Yeah.
moment, that A, B, and C was done. In this partial depth, I don't know the technical construction term, if it's mill and overlay, but it's
Yeah.
not, it's above just patching a hole. It's more significant than that.
I think if they did this in all of those areas, that would be
I would agree.
acceptable.
I just haven't drove over in
Yeah.
that, the C and D section, so I just didn't know if anyone knew if that was actually.
I could try and clarify B and C, but I was told that B and C were done.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
I could go further on that. But the idea, or the scheduled, what's going to happen in the next week or so, is that partial depth repair, not above, more than just patching holes for area D and area E.
Got it. And that's sort of in conjunction also with I know Area E, I guess, with the Chick-fil-A.
But it's not really like yeah, right.
I mean,
Right. It's like, right,
I
in
know
that
Chick-fil-A's
vicinity.
not going there for a little while, but,
Right.
yeah.
And actually, that area E was actually more of an area than I was actually originally told, like a couple weeks ago, to be honest. Like the area not on the entrance exit, but the area shaded in green along the main Independence Way.
Okay.
Josh, where on Federal Street does it become a town road? Is the entire Federal Street private, or does it end at the location they stopped and then it becomes a town road? Do you know?
I think it might be. I remember talking to Steve King
Jim,
about
would you
this.
know that with the?
I think it might be.
Federal Street?
I think it might be all private, but
Everything's private.
yeah,
The road up all the way to the lights is private?
I believe so. Yeah,
It's all
that,
private.
that was
All the
my.
ring roads, everything's private. It's owned by, yeah.
Okay.
That was my
Simon.
intuition too, I thought.
Got it. Okay. If you can find out a little more, just find a little more of the,
On B and C,
yeah, and just
Yeah,
give us a,
sure.
and hopefully at our next meeting, we'll have a little more.
Sure.
We'll be able to maybe talk about it in the past tense.
sure.
So-
And then they also are, I know Jim brought up some of the lights weren't working, and I brought that up to them, and they said that they will be reviewing the lights also, so
Right?
hopefully. Yep.
When did you say they're doing D&E?
They said in an email, on May 6th,
So right now.
D&E are scheduled to repair over the course of the next 2 weeks,
Okay.
so May of 2025,
Okay.
Okay, great.
which is probably interesting timing with the whole with the whole paving of that whole entire main intersection associated with the Chalet Court and 152 Endicott Street. So there's a lot of, paving happening.
Okay. Got it. Good. All right, any other questions about paving? All right, and we'll move on. I guess anything, what's at our next
Yep.
meeting is
Yep.
the 27th,
Yep.
day after Labor Day? I mean,
Yep.
Memorial Day, rather, don't want to get ahead of myself here.
Yep.
Summer.
Memorial Day.
I believe that there will be, it's not officially been submitted, but I believe that there will be an A&R, approval not required application. And then the other application is it's a special permit and site plan application for 83 Elm Street and Essex Street.
Right,
On
right
that
at the
on
corner
that
there, the
corner.
old Danvers Pharmacy building.
Currently, there's a dentist office, and it was a Bank of America before COVID. And there's an application for, it's very similar to what we've been seeing downtown, a mixed-use development, using the existing building above it, with 16 residential units,
16?
16.
Okay.
So that will be the two items on our next meeting on May 27th here.
Okay. Okay, very good. Mr. Bradstreet, did you have a question before we finish
Just
up?
a question, does they turn that into housing, the corner of Essex and Elm? There's a parking lot in back there that should be more than sufficient for parking for the housing units.
The
If-
park,
if-
that existing parking lot is a component of the project.
Okay, all right.
Okay, very good. Anything further, Josh, so we have those two items that'll be an A&R and then this, and Elm Street.
That's right.
Okay, very good. Anything further from members of the board?
I will be on a plane during the next one, so I won't be there. But I did want to mention two items I was hoping maybe we could speak about at a future meeting
Okay,
related to two things we talked about today.
yeah.
One is, I'd like us to consider a resolution to formally request from the Town of Beverly Planning Board to reconsider opening County Way for that development on Trask Lane. I just want more information about why that's not open, because I think that has a really big impact on Danvers, and we're sort of taking as face value that that's how it has to be, and I'd like a formal explanation as to why.
I don't know if it would be, not to interrupt, I don't know if it would be a Beverly Planning Board, as she alluded to. I think it's City of Beverly leadership, but just for informational.
Whoever needs to receive it.
So it would be,
So you requested that an item be placed on the agenda to address,
so it would be an item for our board, but we would be asking the City of Beverly, and then to do what?
Making a request to open County Way for access to the Trask Lane development.
Or an explanation for why the city is not in favor of it.
Yep.
Okay.
okay?
I'm not sure, yeah. Okay, okay. Let's see what I can do about that.
Okay,
The other one is, I'd like to consider a study committee for a plan for getting our master plan together. I know that we're putting the pieces together, but it's a big task. I think it's something we need. I think, people have been talking about zoning so much.
yeah.
We need a plan. We can't keep making decisions based on our personal preferences or opinions. And that is something I think is at the discretion of the board to create, the chair, to create study committees.
Okay. I appreciate your thoughts, and I will take it into consideration.
Great.
Okay, very good. Anything further?
Well, the only comment on that, I mean, I've been on those committees, and I think a lot of times what happens is it actually generates from the town manager and/or the selectman, and it comprises the planning board, the zoning board, and staff, and perhaps other boards. So I've been on probably half dozen of those
Right.
over the years, so.
So it would not just be necessarily our ballgame, but it's something that would involve other, the other,
Yeah,
The
well,
zoning
it'd be great to meet the town manager. I haven't met her yet, and maybe she could come to a meeting,
yeah,
you know?
okay.
Luckily for us, I do believe that she has a community development planning background, so I think that would be an ally for us.
Yeah, good. Okay. Well, thanks for Tim for those, but you said you will not be present at the next meeting?
I think I land at like 6:30, so maybe I make it, but probably not.
Okay.
But where we sit, you will, yeah, we should, you will not be available.
Yep.
So, okay.
You could get a police escort.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I can take the town.
Oh,
of Danvers
you're landing
helicopter.
here, you're landing here at 6:30, that you're saying, or
No,
somewhere?
no,
else?
Logan.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah,
I could take a private jet to Beverly Airport and then get over here quickly.
Yeah, why not?
maybe if you're a little late.
Do Logan
I'm not gonna
Express.
Pick them up?
I'm not gonna say.
Uber?
Okay. Anything, Mr. Bradstreet, yes?
It is, it's still there.
At Hunt?
Sure.
I am not sure about that.
It's a good idea. I got a friend that has a helicopter, maybe we
Okay.
could.
Yeah. We do have Logan Express as well.
What's our budget? What's our petty cash budget? Just, we got to use it up by the end of the fiscal year.
Oh, that's
Anything
right.
further? Anyone else from our next meeting? So Tim, in terms of your questions, in terms of suggestions, and also in terms of having a discussion on some of these other items, I imagine that if we, I'll consider it, and if we indeed put them on the agenda, it would probably be requested that it be not the next meeting.
Yeah, please.
Got it. Oh, yes, Ms. McKenzie.
I just want to mention Memorial Day is 26th this year, 26th of May. And you're all welcome to watch the parade and come to the service that we're going to have at the junior high school.
Thank you.
I'd appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for that announcement. That's very good. Thank you. So, okay, very good. Anybody else? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second. It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None.